Hello and welcome to the Irish Hunting Podcast, the no bullshit podcast for the outdoor enthusiasts. If you're into hunting, fishing, fine wines and even finer foods, you've come to the right place. So pull up a chair.
Welcome back to the Irish Hunting Podcast, episode number 85. On this week's episode, we chat to Phillip from Small Arms Service down in County Cork. Phillip is a gun enthusiast, firearms owner, firearms dealer. He's also an armourer, not to be confused with a gunsmith, and we discuss the difference between both. And also, Small Arms Service are the only factory certified company in Ireland for Duracote and Cerakote, and we discuss in detail the difference and the applications of both. We also chat about what's going on in the club, the preparation for the new season ahead, reflections on the season gone by, and a few little hunting trips that we have planned on the horizon, and a look back on some of the hunting trips over the last couple of weeks. Enjoy this one, folks. How is? Welcome back. It's me on my own this week. First off, apologies guys. I know I haven't been active both on the socials and also on the podcast. We have some really cool guests lined up. Some wish we had to push out for a couple of weeks. Just the family situations. The father-in-law is not well. He's making a good recovery. He's had a huge heart operation there over the last couple of weeks. I myself was sick just after Christmas. That ran into, as I say, some family sicknesses, as I just discussed, and then trying to get back up and running in terms of family sports activities, etc. So I'm sure you're all well versed in that, and obviously then trying to squeeze in a couple of little bits of hunting in between, and keep some club work and stuff like that going. So yeah, look, it's been a hectic couple of weeks. But we're back on track now. Really excited this week. We have Phillip in Small Arms Service. Phillip, I've never actually met Phillip. It's like, that's one of the cool things about the podcast. I feel like I've friends all over Ireland that I've never even met, as mad as that might sound, but we chat regularly on the phone. We send messages back and forth. He gives me advice. He's obviously a huge supporter of the podcast. He makes the medals and stuff for the IHP challenge every year. He's just a huge supporter, which is it's fantastic to have people like him on our side. And we're big fans of what he does. We hope to get down to visit the factory this year. We've been trying to arrange that for the last couple of seasons, but again, it's hard just to get everything in line. So yeah, Phillip's an armourer. Not to be confused with gunsmith, I'm told. So we'll be talking to him about that. What is the difference between both? And also, as I said in the intro, he is Ireland's only certified factory applicator of Cerakote and Duracote. So I've watched some of the transformations of some of the guns that have gone down there. So it's really, really cool. It's really interesting. And obviously we were just chatting about some of the common issues with rifles and shotguns and stuff like that, maintenance issues, how we can preserve the life of the coatings on the gun, and when the difference, I suppose, between sending it to an approved dealer like himself relative to some of the botch jobs we've seen, or the horror shows we've seen online. We've all seen some of them, people paying big money to get guns and rifles recoated and coming back kind of in not great condition, and we discuss why that is and why people are facing some of them issues. So yeah, that's an interesting one coming up. So hope you enjoy that one. Just over the next couple of weeks to let you know what's coming up. We also have confirmed just with Larry Bulger. We're hoping to have Larry. Larry is, of course, he's now nationwide famous. He was on the program Nationwide, or Ear to the Ground, actually, going back a couple of weeks back before Christmas, in terms of the Grey Partridge Project. Again, similar to woodcock, this is one of the areas where I wouldn't be hugely versed in. I know partridge hunting is grey partridge anyway down this neck of the woods is no longer. We can of course shoot red leg, but grey no more. So this is a huge labour of love from the hunting community. I know there's projects all over the country that are supported by NARGC. So really looking forward to that as well, and learning a little bit more about the bird, and seeing will it ever be back on the list if we can do enough work. I don't think so, but look, we're going to ask them questions to Larry. So that's a really interesting one coming up. And also, we have some special guests again, just confirming dates. So we'll hold off on some of the other names over the next couple of weeks. So we've plenty to look forward to. We have, of course, coming up the hunting trip across to Norfolk in England. That is coming up at the start of March. So we're getting prepped for that. There's myself, Rob, and Janos are heading over. We're after Chinese water deer and muntjac. So really, really looking forward to that. That's only less than 3 weeks out now, I think. So yeah, we won't feel that. Just finalising plans for it actually today. The flights and accommodation and car rental and stuff like that booked. So on this occasion, we're using estate rifles. So we're not bringing our own guns over to the UK this time, because we're flying over and we're flying into Stansted. And Aer Lingus are the only ones that are transporting guns in terms of flights, and they don't fly into Stansted. So yeah, we're a little bit tied with that. So we've if we had to fly into Heathrow, I think it was an extra hour and a half, I think, on the journey for drive. So we want to try and, obviously it's a short trip, we want to try and get over, get hunting that even. I think it's our best chance to land our quarry early, as they say. So yeah, big shout out to Tom, who's helping put this together. We'll be doing a little bit more of a detailed analysis on that over the next couple of weeks, and hopefully have to get a chat with Tom when we're over there. So for anyone interested in that type of deer stalking, hunting, stay tuned for that one. Oh, what else is going on? Club wise, the club had a couple of fox drives over the last couple of weeks. So I think for the 2 Sundays now, they've had 6 or 8 foxes. I think it's 6 on the first day. Sorry, 4 on the first day, 2 on the second day, and then there was a couple of small fox hunts then in between. So yeah, I think they're up near 8 in total over the last 2 weeks. Plenty of foxes still about. And plenty of birds still about, which is brilliant. I've been posting a couple of them there, as you've probably seen on the socials. Visible over the last probably week, I've seen close on 8-10 cocks and a couple of hens as well. So that's really, really cool. So it seems to be that what we're doing is working. We're releasing good numbers of hens, as in almost a 50-50 split in terms of what we rear ourselves, obviously. And then obviously we're topping them up, but I think we have 350 birds released last year, close on, with close on 150 hens. So, and everybody in the club got a good rattle this year. You know, some of the guys went into double digits for the first time in a very, very long time. So, that's brilliant, and everyone's buying into the club ethos and putting in plenty of work, and that work is starting all over again now. We've getting pens ready. We'll obviously be getting seeds and stuff ready for planting in them. And we also have feed then for hens and layers and stuff like that. So it's a really busy time. Myself, I'm applying for some of the grants from some of the bigger companies that around the area, with a view to helping out with some of our projects. We have a couple more owl boxes going up over the next couple of weeks, hopefully. Back in the schools, hopefully again. I think the art competition, the NARGC ran a little art competition before Christmas, so the results are hopefully over the next couple of weeks. So I'll be able to hand out prizes to the age groups in the county anyway. I haven't heard whether they were successful on the national level, but regardless, it's about the taking part, which is the most important bit. And then some really cool developments in terms of the school. So I managed to source a bird nesting box for Termon School, which is my local school here. I went to school myself, and the principal there, Mr. Sweeney, actually got a live feed up on YouTube, so the kids can now watch it on the TV screen in the hallway. There's a live stream, and also on YouTube when they go home. So in the real cold weather, there was a little bird there getting in out of cold in it, so they found it. So hopefully just the nesting birds find it over the next couple of months, and we get some activity there. So that's really cool. The hen pheasant has been spotted intermittently, but also, and this is the big thing I think for people, especially in non-gun club members, you can explain to them all our feeders are obviously still out and we're still topping them up and so on and so forth. But they're beneficial not only to pheasants. There's little there's robins now and small birds feeding at the pheasant feeder in the school. So it's adding to their wildlife corner, and the kids fill it up. We have one of the other guys in the Kildare Federation group. A couple of guys actually donated. One from Kilbury and one from Kilcock donated some feeders and some feed, and they're really cool little feeders. They have to be manually topped up with a small little kind of a jug, so it's intricate enough on purpose, if that makes sense. So it gives the kids something to do, and to get their hands dirty, and also then to reap the benefit of it then. And we had some really cool window feeders. They're clear perspex. They've kind of little suckers on them. They stick to the outside of the window. And I was just talking to my niece yesterday, and she was really, really excited to tell me that there's loads of little birds. Little robin was actually feeding out of it yesterday, and some other little birds as well. They're actually taking turns. One was coming up and one was jumping down, feeding at the window. So when they're in the classroom, they can see the birds coming up and feeding out at, which is really, really cool. So yeah, we're getting ready now for breeding season. That's only around the corner. Incubators cleaned out and ready to go. We've our little pen set up for hatching, for bringing on after hatching, with lamps and so on and so forth. I'm going to be checking in with Noli there over the next couple of days, making sure he has everything he needs going forward, and that we're in a good spot this year to kick on. So that's really, really exciting. In terms of hunting, I got out 1 or 2 days last week? With myself and Rob actually got on over the weekend, and I got out myself then one of the other mornings real early. Couldn't sleep, got up, just went hunting for an hour or two. Again, seen a doe, a hind. It was a red hind up on my bit of permission, and she had no calf at foot, and I would be, if it was a year-old calf, I would have probably took one for the freezer. My meat is getting low, but she was on her own. I'm presuming she's in calf, and that's the way she'll stay. We're trying to just control the herd up there, nicely managed. I haven't taken any numbers out of it this year. As you probably all realise at this stage, numerous times I've spotted some of the young stags and the does up there, so I'm leaving them off in the hope that we get some nice stags coming up over the next couple of years, and just trying to manage the herd. It's more for getting out and getting boots on the ground from a head perspective. Funny enough, a lot of trees down obviously with the storm, and that's created huge complications in terms of getting in and out of the area. But the tracks that you'd know off the top of your head, some of them now are blocked, so you have to go nearly half a mile around some of them. But really cool. Was it the Saturday morning, I think. Yeah, Saturday morning we went up early, and plenty of sign, and we seen plenty of hares. There was 4 or 5 hares out dancing around in the open bogland, and we came around. Funny enough, there's a couple of woodcock, and I had forgot this. Rob has said to me numerous times, when we go around that corner there's always a woodcock there somewhere. Funny enough, we came around that corner, and just as I was about to turn to him, said, "This is the area where you always say there's a woodcock flying." Sure enough, a woodcock got up just behind us and broke. So it must be one of our native ones, as Richie explained. They come back to the same areas. So look, there's never more, and you don't go out and you don't see something that's really cool. That was 2 of them, and it was a really nice morning. Actually, started off. The sun was just coming up. We had some really cool pictures there, which I'll throw up on the socials afterwards. My new camera is playing a blinder, and as I say, plenty of track, plenty of fresh track. Probably deers are a little bit displaced, I'd say. With the storm, there's a lot of areas kind of cordoned off, and so that's probably just throwing them off their normal track. But still plenty about. So that's good to see. I hope everyone's having a good, or had a good end to the season. I think all around it seemed to be a pretty successful year. I know we had good numbers in our club. So yeah, I think by and large, everyone had a good old spin at it. Interested to know if anyone's listening. Did anyone experience any kind of downturn in their numbers? From what I can tell, most numbers were pretty well up. Seemed to be a reasonably good winter for them. But yeah, interested to know. So let us know. Also, guys, if you're on our socials, obviously a lot of our socials are kind of restricted, being firearms related and hunting related, so we don't get the exposure that normal pages do. And that's why we rely on you guys just to like and share and tag your friends and stuff, get them to follow and like the page, because that gives us the slightly wider audience. I think we're in terms of wider audience, we're at 80 countries now, which is absolutely phenomenal. It's hard to believe, and I think over 2,500 countries or cities. That climbs new cities every day like mad. There's Dubai, I think, last week, parts of England, obviously. So that's really, really cool. Obviously, the usual America, Australia, New Zealand, but yeah, and some fairly random countries as well, in terms of what we would be expecting to be listening to the podcast. So huge thanks to everyone for that. I'm looking forward to, as I say, chatting with Philip. I had a couple of issues with some of my rifles and guns over the years, so I'm looking forward to putting that to him. And in terms of any, we'd love to hear your messages. Keep them coming, guys. If you've any news or any questions that you want us to ask, please keep them coming. We try and get back to everyone. Our email address is there. You get us on Messenger, Instagram, and I say, if you just like and share, and if you like what we do and you want to support it, there's a little link on the Instagram and Facebook there to subscribe to us and throw us the price of a coffee if you like it. If you don't, no problem. There's also a full list of merch there on the Instagram or on Facebook. You'll see it all there. There's hoodies and t-shirts and stuff like that. So yeah, we've a full contingent of that. If anyone wants some of that, please let us know. And we've some big plans coming up over the next couple of months. So please stay tuned. And without further ado, we'll bring you the interview with Philip. Enjoy, guys. Phillip Slattery, welcome finally to the Irish Hunting Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
This has been a long time. We were just chatting off air. This is a long time in the making. We were trying to decipher how long we actually know each other, in inverted commas. We've never met. This is the first time face to face.
Yeah.
And I think it's close on 2.5 years, or just yet.
I'd say it would be. Yeah, it would be about that. Yeah.
You were actually one of the first guys that reached out to us from the the not the hunting community, the gun community, and
Right.
you've been a very big supporter of ours from day one. So we really appreciate your
Yeah,
support.
cheers. Yeah, look, I mean, it's great that what you're doing, to see the level of success you've achieved, is great. And to be honest, it's like listening to someone sitting beside you.
Yeah,
The
thanks a
banter
million,
that you
man.
have is very good, like, and very fluid and look, very enjoyable, very enjoyable.
Thank you, my man. Thank you. Most gratefully appreciate it. And as I say, very welcome. So, a little without further ado, we want to get into your background and your history, dive in, because there's some things that I do know and some things I don't know. So, um, first of all, you're a gun armorer. That's correct?
Yeah, so I'm through the army, through the defense forces. I got an apprenticeship. Like all apprenticeships ran in Ireland, they're ran through FOSS. So no, FOSS don't teach you on the firearms aspect of it, but they teach you as a fitter. So welding, hydraulics, pneumatics, turning parts on lathes, making parts on milling machines, and hand fitting parts. That'll be the majority of what they do there. But your time then with the defense forces is all the stuff that they have: pistols, rifles, shotguns, rifles, whether they're bolt action, whether they're semi-automatic. Obviously, the fully automatic stuff isn't licensable here within the state, like, but
Yeah,
that's it. Um, everything up to light machine guns and heavy machine guns. That's what I'm actually qualified to do, and it's
to do.
what the name comes from as well. Yeah, the business
And
name.
just it's one of the things that I didn't know. I think you because I think I called you by the incorrect. I was gunsmith. I thought that was your official title, but
Yeah,
different.
yeah,
Isn't
well,
that
yeah,
correct?
yeah. Well, you see, there's
Potato,
so
potato.
my title is a fitter armor. That's my qualification. I don't go by the gunsmith qualification because look, I'm very proud of what I've done through the
Yeah,
defense forces, and as well, it is my qualification. There's a lot of people out there that use that term gunsmith and they haven't got anything under their belt, whereas I
okay.
have. I'm in the I'm in the ordnance, or was in the ordnance corps with my apprenticeship since 2003, certified since 2007, and subsequently left the defence forces then in 2022. So
Okay.
I've a bit of experience with it, a bit of
Absolutely,
experience.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and that's well earned, says you. Take us back, I suppose. This is not a love that was quickly developed. This was going back to your youth. So take us back. How and when did your love of the game, in terms of the all things firearms, start, and how did it start?
Yeah, well, I have an uncle who's big into the fishing and shooting scene. So from my teens, even calling out to his house, it was always curious to see what he had and stuff, in terms of rifles or shotguns. He brought me out shooting deer a couple of times with him, all right, but like he used to call me a magpie because we'd never got anything when I was there, So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
kind of where it started. My dad then as well would have been big into classic cars, and he had a couple of boats at the time as well, and was always tinkering on things. So I would have been bitten by a bug for taking things apart and working on anything mechanical since then,
okay.
So
So
yeah.
you've essentially you got a good a base in both camps, and hence they've
Yeah,
ironically have
yeah,
become melded
yeah.
into what you do at the minute.
Yeah, so look, I was kind of Between my father being in the airport police in Shannon, my uncle being in the army, I had cousins and uncles in the army or in the fire service. I elected to go to the army myself in 2000. I said I was extremely lucky. At the time, the army were only taking in apprentices from within the defence forces. So in 2003 as well, there was a lot of people applying for these apprenticeships, and it was extremely hard to get them. So I said I was lucky to get them. I was lucky to get it within the Ordnance Corps, which is what I wanted to do, working on all the stuff that the army had, and it went from there.
Very good. And I suppose
Yeah.
your background in the army then gives you a good grounding for business in terms of your as we all know, a business runs smoother when you have everything in order, in line, and
Yeah. Well, I do keep things, try to keep things tidy
yeah,
in here, right? Yeah.
yeah, good stuff.
So
I suppose then, like, you do a little bit with long range shooting and stuff like that as well.
well, I was always, yeah, target shooting was my thing. The long range, I have done a small bit of it years ago. My big thing actually would have been pistols. Now look, the center fire pistols are unfortunately gone, but you can still get two pistols licensed at this time. My biggest issue for following the hunting route was that I'm from Shannon, and at the time I was stationed in Cork. My mother would have absolutely loved if I was coming home on the weekends and shooting a deer and
Yeah,
leaving it hang then for 2 weeks or whatever it was at the time. So
yeah.
I stuck with the target shooting in that regard, and yeah, so that's where I've kind of been always been a member of a range, and that's how I shoot.
And come here, in terms of, just talk us through it a little bit for people who don't know. Obviously, there was a big furore over the last year or two in terms of the restrictions put on both, as you said, the pistols and also the semi-autos.
Hmm.
What give us a little bit of background. How did this all come about, Philip? You're well in the mix of it, in the middle of it. How did it come about?
Yeah, so look, I think it's a kind of a long one in that, you see, in 1972 the then minister signed off on what was called a temporary custody order. So any, off the top of my head now, geez, you have to catch me on a hop. Any
Sorry, my man.
pistol or yeah, no, you're fine. Any pistol or rifle, I believe it was over a 22 caliber, had to be handed in. At the time, I believe the licenses ran for on a yearly basis from July to July.
Okay.
So they were supposed to be handed in for a month, but a lot of them never saw the light of day again because the guards had complete control over them. Um, Even in the early 90s, even into the 2000s, getting a 308 wasn't something that was easily done because
Okay.
for shooting, for even hunting deer and stuff, a 243 or 270 was the maximum you were going to get.
Yeah.
So what had kind of happened from that was that several court cases were taken against. I assume it was the guards. I'm not 100% sure, but because everything was legally licensable here, but you could apply for it, but never hear back. Never get a
Okay.
response, never, and that's what led to the scenario we have now, where you apply for a firearm, well, whatever the use is for, whether it be for hunting or whether it be for target shooting, and after 12 weeks, or if you get a refusal, you can appeal it to court. So that's kind of
Okay.
where it came from, but. I mean, unfortunately, through with the pistols, it was the criminal use of pistols that would have seen them ultimately banned in about 2008, or grandfathered, as they call it. Anybody who had a center fire pistol pre 08 was entitled to reapply for it, but no new ones could be issued. So if you saw, name a pistol, something, a Glock or a 1911 now inside in the gun shop, you can't license that now, like. So
It's
that's
a
where it kind
mad
of is, yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird. We kind of touched on it without obviously the detail you're after giving. But like that, it seems kind of mad that in a world where, you know, if they're trying to cut back on criminality and illegally for yeah, held firearms, surely the legally licensed and traceable firearms would be of the least concern, But I think
Y-
unfortunately we're in the age now where there's the controls, I suppose, are getting a little bit tighter everywhere. In all forms, be it monetary, be it digitally and all that kind of stuff. And this is probably a little bit of a follow on from that, but I
Yeah,
find
look, it's r- my view on it is that pre these court cases that made these uh, firearms more accessible in that you could apply, and if you didn't get them, you could appeal and make the Gardaí had utter control over everything. As I said, even with bolt actions, you couldn't get a 300 Win Mag. You
yeah,
couldn't get a 308, something that's almost common now. Well,
yeah,
certainly the 308 is extremely common,
absolutely,
you know.
absolutely, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
even like even in probably about 2004, I was talking to a guy and I had a 223 and I was in I said Clare, I could get a 223 in Kilkenny, he couldn't because the superintendent was telling him that that was a military caliber.
Mad, yeah, it's
Yeah.
and we hear that all the time, from county to county, from parish to parish. It's one rule in one area and another rule in another area, and there's no. I suppose we've been calling out that for the best part of well, I know on the podcast in terms of since we started, but I know further back, like everybody's just been called for a streamlined system. It should be
Yeah,
as you
yeah,
were. If they sat down with men like yourself, experts in the field, and so on and so forth, and for a couple of days, they'd quickly get to a system where, I mean, if you're exchanging, we've said it before here, if you're exchanging a shotgun for a shotgun, that should be a very, very simple system, and that'll
yeah,
it twofold. It helps cash flow in terms of all the gun dealers around the country who don't have to sit there and wait for uh, be it 6 weeks, be it 6 months, be it up to a year in some cases for that license to come through. And they've held
mm,
that firearm for somebody else, and somebody else has held a deposit there, and there's no cartridges being bought. And it actually, I think, it encourages, which will lead us on to our next topic. But I think it'll encourage, the use of probably unsafe firearms. So lads be holding on to Owly Oaks that, they would have traded in years ago, only the thoughts of going through the process probably stopped them, you know?
yeah, yeah. Well, look, I mean, it's something that has been said before about having a single licensing authority, so that one office is making decisions that. So I suppose the idea at the time was that perhaps your local guards was sending a report to this licensing authority, and that the A&A then was given by one office, so that what
Yeah,
was given in Clare was given in Limerick, was given in Killarney,
yeah,
Um, but actually, to touch on like the old paper licensing system, at the time there was subsequent or shotgun licenses allowed. So I think it was it £25 was your first shotgun, and then every subsequent shotgun after that was £5. Now with the
okay,
new system that was yearly. When it changed to euros, then I think it went to €30, and then €30, and the subsequent was six. But what ended up happening was when it went to the 3 year license and they got rid of the subsequent ones, a lot of guns that were held for because they were their fathers or they were sentimental value.
yeah,
A lot of them, a guy said, "I'm not licensing that." For eight. Now, actually, at the time, I remember a lot of people thought that it was going to be €80 a year, so
yeah,
guns were handed in and cut up, because of it. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's another thing to it.
Just before we move off that, it'll say that actually highlight a little a question there in terms of, and I'm sure there's people around the country, who've got out and hunted with their father or their uncle or maybe their grandfather and so on, and a shotgun or a rifle has been handed down, and maybe he's not going to be used anymore. What is the process here, Philip, in terms of decommissioning that and but still keeping the firearm? If you get me,
Unfortunately, there isn't.
there
That's the
isn't.
very, very simple answer. Yeah. So, from unfortunately European legislation on the foot of attacks in Europe, Europe brought in sweeping legislation on how a firearm is deactivated, and it is very specific on how to do it. It's actually, I believe it was the German model that a pistol has to have X, Y, and Z things done to it. A bolt action rifle has to have certain things done to it. And it was down to the firearm type as to how it had to be done. But ultimately, once the work was done, it would have to go to a proof house and be stamped, be inspected and stamped that the work had been carried out. Unfortunately, Ireland doesn't have a proof house, so we
Okay.
can't have it stamped. Now, for a while, it would have been acceptable to have a firearm that had been checked in the UK, but now they're not in Europe anymore.
So that's creating another issue.
Yeah, look, I get asked it a lot about what do I do? I have my father's gun here or whatever. The only thing they actually can do is license it.
Yeah,
You
which
know?
seems which seems counterproductive to what
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It feeds into that thing. Actually, we'll just stick with the rifle or the gun that we have rather than get a new fully functioning. I'm not saying that all of them are not functioning, but
Hmm.
a lot of these guns will be. You've seen them. I've seen some of the pictures of some of the guns. That you get to work on, um, and I'm sure there's a lot worse. And I've seen on the 1st of November sometimes going out with lads and you'd be looking and you have
Yeah,
to take a
yeah.
double take. So like that, I presume there's both ends of the scale there. So I just think it's kind of is counterproductive. It's uneconomic. It's you're starving a really good and vibrant industry of much needed impetus in terms of cash and cash flow and so on and so
Yeah.
forth.
Well, you see, I mean, prior to the European legislation within Ireland, there was no legislation on how to do it.
Okay.
So there are deactivated firearms out there that I suppose visually, I mean, this could be a family member's firearm, and when they're deactivated, because they're using. I've seen stuff that a firing pin had, or firing pin holes where someone put a stick welder on it, and
Yeah.
there was lumps of weld up on this thing, and then welded the barrel shut. Now you can imagine with a big industrial stick welder, how
Yeah.
horrendous it looked,
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, that isn't enough. That
Yeah.
is not enough in deactivating them. So again, that's why the European legislation is so specific on how to do it. But again, the issue is that Ireland doesn't have a proof house. So
And when you say proof house, what is the requirements for if in the morning somebody wanted to set up a proof house? There's a whole raft of, I'm sure, technical and other
yeah, yeah,
qualifications
it
and
is.
assessments.
There is actually legislation. There is actually legislation on proofing. Again, now you've kind of caught me on the hop, but
Yeah, no,
you
it's
can
just
you can you can find out. You can search Fenian shotguns. They were in. There's a museum outside Durrow, the fly
okay,
fishing museum. They have a few bits and pieces still from the Fenian Shotgun Company.
okay,
You see, in order to be able to sell them, they have to be proofed. So there was legislation. A proof house was going to be a government institute at the time, and they would proof a firearm in that they'd be using cartridges that would be 20, 30, 40% over or whatever it requires over the pressures that would ever be developed within the chamber, and they checked to see that the gun didn't essentially detonate. You know,
yeah, yeah,
I said Ireland never had one. The UK had two of them. Germany has them. A lot of European countries have them because they have a firearms industry.
Yeah,
Ireland just never did.
yeah.
Um,
We have a
so
firearm
at this,
industry, but it's not recognized in. It's like we call it the dirty cousin in the wedding. You know, we push him over in the corner. I hope he doesn't get too drunk to make a scene.
yeah. Well, look, as I said, there's the hit now. While not a lot of Fiend shotguns were ever made, they certainly were a manufacturer since the foundation of the state. But before that, there were gun makers in Ireland at one stage that did. There were a lot of them. So again,
Yeah,
before the foundation of the state, but certainly they were here.
yeah. And look, Ireland has a what would you say a very varied history in terms of, you know, it's not too long ago, you know, we achieved our independence, and there was, you know, there was a couple of wars, the civil wars, and so on and so forth. So there is most definitely there's firearms out there throughout the country that were handed down generations, and
Mm,
people are
mm.
probably just so afraid of losing that piece of memorabilia now they probably wouldn't um not would never dream of utilizing. And some of them, as you know, some of the old guns, you want to be a caveman to try and operate some of them and hold them and keep them on point. So, but like that, it's those people, and that will continue on. Like you know, there's I was talking to you know, a couple of guys through the podcast and stuff who would have hunted for their whole of childhood with their father, and they have their father's shotgun and so on and so forth. And like what you said, now they're licensing it now, not utilizing it. Um, but that seems like a very, very, you know, primitive way of dealing with that. You know,
Yeah,
sure,
unfortunately, now, again, it is European legislation. And Garda Síochána have been tasked with being the authorized body for sending these firearms to once they've been deactivated. But it's something that they haven't touched in a number of years.
yeah,
So this is the standstill that we're at, you know. That
yeah, yeah,
unfortunately the only now and in many of these cases where you know you get a firearm and it was their father's gun or a family member's gun, like they're in ruins. You know, you now they still function. They
yeah,
still actually function. You know, take for example a double barrel shotgun, whether it be a side by side or an over and under, like they're like a farmer's gate. There's so much
yeah,
play in between them, you know, and you're thinking like, oh, the only thing you can do with them is either A, deactivate them, or B, cut them up, but you
yeah.
can't deactivate them, you know.
So you're
So
left.
yeah, you're left with that. Like, there's no one going to pay €80. Plus, as well, you have to have a valid reason to have it, you know.
Yeah,
And sometimes the sentimental value is not a valid reason, you
yeah.
know.
Which I think is very it's again, it's very cold. I think, you know,
Yeah.
it's we've created a problem that shouldn't really exist. But c'est la vie. Moving on to
Mm,
your, I suppose you've your workshop down in the People's Republic, as you said, down in Cork.
mm.
Um, the range of things that you do, Philip. Talk us through some of the services you provide down there.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, first of all, if you're working on firearms, you have to be a firearms dealer. That is the law.
Yeah,
So you know, that was what that is. We are a restricted firearms dealer down here. So pretty much anything you can license in the state, we can hold or we can work on it. So again, whereas most dealers have their license for dealing them, it for us it's the repair
yes,
repair, the modification, and the likes of refinishing them with Cerakote. So in I think it was about 2013, I went over to Germany to get Cerakote certified um, to use their products instead of using the traditional bluing. You know,
okay,
modern ceramic coatings just there's no comparison. It is tradition versus evolution is how I tell people, because Cerakote themselves will they test all their products in house. So in a saltwater bath test, when you compare bluing versus Cerakote, off the top of my head, I think traditional bluing is about 16 to 20 hours before rust starts to show through. Cerakote on its I suppose their ordinary series, it's about 2,000 hours before rust starts going through. And their
Okay.
latest series called the E series, it's 3,000 hours before rust starts showing through. Like, so on a rust preventative issue, it's light years ahead of it.
Okay.
Plus you don't have to, with it like a traditional bluing, you don't have to worry about your fingerprints leaving marks on it. You don't have to worry about blood from if you shot an animal
Yeah.
taking it off. It's they're just, it's not something to worry about. Plus as well, you're looking at over 200 colors. You're not
Wow.
stuck to using,
The
a
traditionals.
traditional. Yeah, yeah. And of course, then you see it's not just steel that you can apply it to. You can put it onto aluminium. You can put it onto carbon fiber. You can put it onto your stocks. You can do your scopes. You can pretty much do everything with it.
Yeah.
Once the application is proper or done properly. So that's kind of where I would have started out with a lot of this stuff, um, from doing different courses on firearms finishes, and then once the dealership here took hold. I've a lathe in here, I've a milling machine in here, I've a laser engraver for marking firearms that have been either manufactured or imported into the EU post, I think it's 2018. They all have to be marked a certain way. Um, it's a pretty unique setup that I have here.
Wow. Wow. And I suppose to give people who don't, the traditional bluing, that involved a process that's, as you probably pointed out there, it involved heat on the barrel. Was that correct?
Yeah, well, there's two types. So you've a cold rust bluing, which is extremely labor intensive,
Okay.
and then there's a hot bluing. Um, But the issue with hot bluing is that hot bluing is actually caustic, and it can attack the solder holding barrels together.
Okay.
Now, as well as that, there's a couple of other issues with it, in that it's absolutely toxic. It'll kill you.
Okay.
So it wasn't something that, when I started looking down this route, it wasn't something that I was really interested in doing. Plus,
Yeah.
again, as I said, you can't, you'll do a set of double barrels, but you can't then do, if you had an aluminium part for a firearm, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do stainless steels. You couldn't, if you just scope.
Again, very restrictive. Yeah.
Yeah,
Restrict.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Plus, again, it was just that, as I said, the tradition versus evolution, that the modern coatings just
That
decimate.
stepped up. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was,
yeah.
and for anyone, I suppose, especially Ireland has a unique climate in that I think is it, out of the, I think one of the lads with the thermals were telling me, that they have the kind of the data. I think out of the 360 days or something, there's close on 200 days, or between 180 and 200 days of what's called precipitation, be it fog, mist, so on and so forth. So, and obviously the bulk of that is in the rough shooting
Mm.
um, um, time of the year. So anytime you're going out, you're either going to come back slightly damp to extremely wet. That's the general
Yeah,
consensus.
yeah,
So
yeah.
um,
And like, even when you look at our climate, we're sitting in some days here, there's 80% humidity around
yeah,
you, and we're just so used to it that we get, like, you've been out for a day with a gun, and if you don't take it out and oil it before you put it back in the safe, it can be rotten the next day with
yeah,
standard bluing. Like, yeah, I get
yeah.
that all the time. Or something that they've used to clean the barrels, whatever chemical they've used, it's reacted with the bluing, and it's just blobs all over it, where it's back to bare metal.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things. I think when we were hunting on the continent and stuff, although it's colder over there, it doesn't feel as cold as here, if that makes sense. There's that
No,
because
absolutely, yeah.
it's that damp kind of humid air. As you're saying that it kind of gets in on you, and look, if it's getting in on you, it's going to be getting in your firearm.
Mm.
Take that. I know I've a couple of guys there who I know like that would have the traditional gluing on the guns. What is the process then? They send the gun down to you. What's the process?
Yeah, so they can either drop it down or they can send it down. So it really depends on the firearms type. Like, double barrel shotguns will probably be the most commonly licensed firearm in the country. So what we do is we take them in. They're stripped down. They're chemically cleaned. They're degreased, and they're also ultrasonically cleaned. So we find that in doing that, any oil or dirt or even rust that are in between barrels, it gets cleaned out. Um, for the likes of shotguns that have removable chokes and the ejectors, they're taken out, they're polished, they're cleaned, so that when they do go back into the gun again, that they're going to work as optimally as you can really, areas that we don't want Cerakote on, which is merely for cosmetics, we just mask off. So the Cerakote is going on so thin that it's possible to Cerakote a nut and bolt and put them back together.
Okay, I was just going to ask that with the chokes. Obviously,
No,
there's no
no,
impact in terms of
no.
Cumber.
Now internally, I make it is completely masked off because there's no benefit to putting it. Look, when you start firing lead down range, there's no coating that's
No
going
coating
to.
on the
Yeah,
inside, but
yeah,
even at the
yeah,
top of the where the sometimes I know my choke sits slightly proud of the bar. Where they there's
yeah.
no lip. I suppose for people like dummies like me, we're imagining like something sprayed on. It's like a coat of the old traditional lead paint or something.
Oh,
Where
and there's runs
it's
in it. And, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
like I mean, even when you're talking about when you're talking about again the shotgun, the knurling that you'd have on the top rib, that's still clean, that's still sharp, that's still crisp.
yeah.
On bolt action rifles, again, you can actually put it on the rifle lugs. But the issue with that is it affects what they call headspace within the firearm. So
Okay,
it's something that I don't do. Now, if you were to use, a spray can of stuff, you'd never get the gun to go back together again because it would be on so thick. But
yeah.
but like even when you look at the take double barrels off a gun and you see on the sides of the block, on the lump, there'd be an area that's jeweled. You know, I'd mask that off because, well, first of all, I think it looks lazy if you don't.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very easy just to, almost throw it on. But I mask it off primarily just for cosmetics because that's the way it comes from factory. But I mean, the Cerakote is going on so thin that you could actually leave them unmasked
And
and
have
the
no
gun would
impact.
still go back together. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Very,
So.
very good.
Yeah, and as I
I've
said, look, you'd find guys there that they have whether it be a rifle or a shotgun, and they don't like the glare on it, so you can use a matte black. Or some guys love a gloss on their barrels, so you can use a glossier black. It really just the sky's the
personal
limit.
preference.
Yeah, you can do barrels pink if you want.
Wow. And I'm sure that's definitely is amenable now. We've obviously we've a range of between. It's not just the rough shooting community. We've as you said, you've target shooting, you've long distance shooting, we've the I think you know Shane and Dean there. Um, the guys they're shooting 6.5s
Oh yeah, yeah.
and like that. So we've a huge range now of activities within the gun community. You've
Hmm,
the long range 2.2s and so on,
hmm, hmm.
the competition. So it's fantastic to see. And obviously
Hmm.
then you can essentially have your a personalized rifle
Yeah,
or
yeah,
which is good.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, it's as much as it is about personalization, um, it's about as well protecting your firearm or your investment as well. Look,
Absolutely.
yeah, look, firearms are built. Unfortunately, they're built to a price point. And some guns more than others. Some of them just look at rain and they start to rust. Um,
And in terms of that, then like I know, look, we're not going to hold you because obviously it depends on the condition of the gun coming down to you and so on. Roughly, what are you looking at for, say, a double-barreled shotgun?
Yeah, so with ourselves, it's a double barrel shotgun is €250. So
Right.
the barrels. So again, that's stripped, that's chemically cleaned, that's degreased. The chokes are taken out, polished. The ejectors are taken out, polished, and deburred. Obviously, your sight bead is taken out. Now we can install a high vis sight bead if you prefer that as well. The likes of Brownings that have the mid bead, they're taken out. A lot of people think they're impossible to get. I think I've about 50 of them here. I keep them on hand because you can't take them out and not put a new one back in. Like I'd feel terrible. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
After getting it down for the sake of the candle on the cake, isn't that it?
Yeah, that's it. Like, make it 9 times out of 10. If the bees that are on are pretty bad, we just stick on a high vis one as well as part of it, like, because
Deadly,
the
deadly.
last thing you want to do is take the gun out of the case and you're ready, because it is ready to go. It's ready to go back on your gun when we send it back to you. The last thing you want is to take it out and you've got an original sight bead on it and it looks terrible.
Terrible, yeah.
So yeah,
Well, I would have
yeah.
thought, to be honest with you, if somebody had asked me, I would have thought it would have been at least double, if not more than that. Because I've
Now,
seen,
by all means, I can charge more.
yeah, look, but generally, I think that's very, very economical. And like, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised with that because there is a lot of like I've seen, as I say, just myself. There's in this country, there's a lot of guns that probably come out once or twice a year, for a couple of festive shoots or whatever, and would be reasonably poorly maintained, and I probably include myself in that. But I'm just slightly better than some of the guys I know. But I think that's very, very, very reasonable for because I've seen some of your work, so I think it's phenomenal. And in terms
Cheers,
then
thanks. Yeah.
going over to the rifle ends, say if we were to take a 243 or that was sent down to you, talk us through the process then, what you would
Yeah,
do.
so it's the same thing really. Again, the firearm comes down, it's stripped, it's degreased, goes through an ultrasonic cleaner. So it really depends on options with bolt action rifles. Let's say Tikas, for example, pretty popular rifle, or
Yeah,
a Remington 700. So you're starting at about €220 and going up, just depending on what you want. You can have the barreled action done, or you can go for what I call, or what we call, a full metal refinish. So the full metal refinish would differ than the barreled action, because if your bottom metal is metal as opposed to plastic, it would include that. It would include your action screws. The barreled action refinish will include your bolt as well. Complete disassembly, ultrasonic clean, degrease, and check then before reassembly. But with the full metal refinish, then just depending on the bolt, you have a choice of the bolt body to be either polished, to be left as is if you like it as is, or to be Cerakoted as well. So
wow.
and you'll include your Picatinny rail. So when you get the gun back, pretty much everything metal that's on that gun has been either polished, stripped out, cleaned, or Cerakoted.
And so starting at
Oh,
220.
sorry. So you're starting at about 220 for the barrel action refinish. Now, if you have a muzzle cap on that, it's included as well. I said your bolt is included up to. You're talking about €350 and maybe a little bit more, just depending on the model of the gun, for a full
Yes,
metal
yeah.
refinish. Yeah, yeah.
A full metal jacket, you're looking at
Yeah,
350
yeah,
in around.
yeah, yeah.
Savage
And why,
stuff.
like, and while we have you as well, then, like, we are delighted in the last few months that we're importing Timney triggers direct from Timney themselves. So if you'd like, then we can actually install and set up a Timney trigger for you. So you not just have the look of a new firearm and the corrosion protection and chemical resistance that Cerakote offers, but you're also then going to have a firearm that feels new and shoots better with a aftermarket trigger. from Timney.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's and again, rough prices on triggers.
The
I'm not.
triggers, it really
Yes.
depends on the model. Howes, I think they're about, off the top of my head, and don't hold me to it, I think they're about €280. The Tikas they're a little bit more expensive. They could be 350, I think. Don't hold me to it.
Yeah, but in around,
Yeah, and working with Timney is absolutely fantastic, because if you're not happy, they'll just give you a new one for free. Through us.
Brilliant,
Yeah,
brilliant.
any issues with them? I actually had a customer now that they purchased a Timney T3 for trigger. Actually, was through another seller, and the trigger broke. And they asked me, look, now they were going to pay for replacement or for repair or whatever. I was putting in an order to America directly anyway, and sent them over a picture, and they sent me a new one for the customer.
Brilliant. And
Yeah.
for those of us listening, what's the benefit of, obviously you get the feel of a new trigger and so on and so forth. And
Hmm.
is there other benefits of the Timney compared to other triggers on the market?
Yeah,
Obviously you've
sure. Well,
explained.
well, yeah. Look, I mean, after again, every firearm is built to a price point. So that's
Yeah,
why then the aftermarket stuff can be, obviously you're adding value to the firearm. With aftermarket triggers, you're really, a lot of them give you adjustability in your
yeah,
trigger. Um, so whereas your factory trigger, you might feel that the weight of it, is too heavy, that as you're slowly pulling the trigger, you'll find that it's gritty, or there's what they call creep in it.
yeah,
And there isn't that kind of you're lying down behind a rifle, you've got your sights there on an animal, you're ready to take a shot, and you're pulling and pulling and pulling, and you're thinking it's going to fire now, no, it's going to fire, no, it's going to fire, and boom, it goes.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas the Timney triggers are they're all made in house. They can all be set, again, depending on the model. They can be set down to half a pound. Now,
okay.
for a hunting scenario, that is too light.
Too
But to
light,
make
yeah.
at 2.5 pounds, they make a really, really crisp trigger that you're lying behind the gun, you're waiting to go. You take off your safety, you pull the trigger, and it's go.
Yeah, and it's probably taken away sometimes that if you're kind of a long pull and you have to, especially
Yeah,
for rough
yeah,
shooting, you can tend to be flinchy and stuff like that. So obviously you can start to
yeah.
mold it towards your feel, your style.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, they do so many options. It's fantastic that you can go into the whole realm of a single stage versus a two stage. So a single stage trigger would be that you pull the trigger and it just goes, almost like breaking glass. A
yeah,
two stage trigger, I find, for me, offers more control, because your first stage could be set at a half a pound, and your second stage then could be at the 1.5 pounds, or whichever you set it at. So you pull the trigger to a point where it stops. All right, it's just a little
yeah.
bit more than what you're already pulling, and you know that from just after that, it's going to go. So you
Go
can hold there,
at that point, and
at
then
that point, and when
yeah,
you're ready, then just slowly squeeze and let it go.
let it go. Brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
Very
So,
interesting.
yeah.
That's good. And I suppose I'm going to throw something at you here, kind of off kilter. It's a problem I had with my gun. You may or may not be able to solve, but it's just something that's creeped up in the last couple of weeks. And I've had this kind of issue as well with um my previous. I had a Bergara previously, and the magazine was giving me issues. Now this could is
Mm.
again, it's probably a problem created by myself in some ways. Because sometimes when I come in late from hunting, and I could be out foxing until 2 or 3 o'clock at night, and get the gun into the safe, pop the magazine out, and don't unload the magazine. I throw the magazine in the bottom of the safe.
Mm.
I get that in the
Mm.
morning, and then I forget about it for 2 or 3 days, and I open up the safe and I fuck, I should have took all the rounds out of that. Anyway, I have a five round mag, and it's just a standard Bergara mag. And what I find is sometimes when I'm rifling through, it could be my first round goes in perfect all the time. Tends to be the second or the third round. It doesn't present the front of the round properly, and I have to
Mm.
literally, if I pop the magazine out and pop it straight back in again, it'll present it again perfectly. Do
Right, right.
you think
Yeah,
that's a
look,
magazine issue? You'd have to see it going, obviously.
to be honest, yeah, I'd have to see it. But before I make even bringing it down, I'd say check the basics. The basics will be obviously empty the magazine, check the magazine's clean.
Yeah,
If there could be just dirt or debris in there, if you
yeah,
have the tools to do it, it mightn't be a bad idea to take the rifle out or the barrel action out of the stock and just check that it isn't gunked up or
yeah.
um. Look, it could be a
Could be
multiple
a
of
myriad.
things. It could be that the magazine just isn't sitting right from the get-go. So without actually seeing it, like
It's
we could
hard to
speculate.
diagnose.
Yeah,
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 yeah. There's a question that I'll probably presented because again I had a similar issue with it was a 3 round mag on the old one, and is there aftermarket magazines that are better than say the stock magazine? Is that something that you can get out there? Is it or is it?
yeah. It depends again on the rifle. A lot of the times, the bottom metal will dictate the magazines that will go into it.
Yeah,
You can get aftermarket bottom metals that'll support a variety of magazines. The more
yeah,
important or the most notable one will be an Axis International metal magazine. But
yeah,
it's for a lot of people that they're just cost prohibitive, so they'll sit down and use a Bagara or whatever comes
yeah,
with the guns.
yeah.
Um, Again, there might not be the need to go for an aftermarket magazine. Again, it could just be something
A
simple,
small issue. Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
I
yeah.
said I'd throw it on. Actually, I knew it was kind of like it's like asking a doctor over the phone what's wrong with you. It's kind of
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's one of them things you nearly have to see in person.
I
I'm
remember even years ago, I mean, there's online forums now for everything, and I remember being this could be 20 years ago. Someone on an Irish online forum, and they posted an issue with their rifle, and of course everyone was giving their opinion on it, and I think at the time I even which would have been more awkward to do, I edited the picture, so pointing at things and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
What I
yeah,
thought it was, of course, you can never see the full picture. So anyway, it turned out that the rifle was just loose in the stock.
yeah.
And me pointing out all the stuff, and it was nowhere near that at all. So I just
At
thought,
all,
oh,
yeah.
yeah,
Lesson learned.
you could
Yeah,
speculate here all you want, but at the end of the day, until you have it in front of you, it could be a number of things.
number of things. There's what is the I suppose what is the that stands out the worst condition firearm that's coming your way, that caught you by surprise, I suppose, and that had you kind of going backwards. Can,
Uh, I don't think I don't think much really surprises me.
yeah,
I don't think much really surprises me, and certainly the worst that I've seen is unfortunately a guy bought a Bakel shotgun, and he had less than a box of cartridges gone through it, and where he kept it was damp, and I think inside in the safe that he had it in as well, he had it wrapped in a towel,
yeah,
and yeah, so when he took the gun out of the safe. Now it was in there for a number of years, I believe. When he took the gun out anyway and took the towel off it, like it was red raw with rust, and there was
yeah.
so much rust on the barrels itself and on and even on the face of the barrels that you couldn't actually close the gun.
Wow.
So yeah, I got it down and I have a chemical process here that for removing rust as well, that I use for different things. And once the rust had been removed, the barrels are so badly pitted that you couldn't stand over it. You could see where the ribs had joined, the solder was still there, but where there wasn't solder, the metal was gone
Wow.
because
Wow.
it was that was certainly the one of the worst ones. And I had to go back to the customer and tell them that look, that the gun is scrap, like
Yeah.
it's too dangerous. Yeah, I've actually seen that a couple of times. Another incident was where unfortunately an individual had a firearm stolen. Now the firearm was subsequently recovered and given back to him. It was a Browning, but whatever way it was stored, it very quickly the barrels deteriorated to a stage where there was heavy pitting on the outside of the barrel. That the only thing you could really do is send it over to be proofed to make sure that it was safe again. And again,
Yeah.
with in the absence of a proof house, you have to err on the side of caution and say, look, I'm sorry, no, that's, look, I wouldn't recommend doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah. Look, I
Mm.
suppose there's a point where you have to be. We're not dealing with it's a firearm. It's a dangerous weapon, so on and so forth. And you're I know an ethical character, so it's not a case where you can say to
Oh
yourself,
yeah, well yeah, like
we've chanced this one. It's not a
yeah,
you
you
know
have to remember that it is essentially what all firearms do is they're a controlled explosion inches from your face. It's just that
face
all the pressure is designed to go in one direction.
one
Do you know?
direction. Yeah.
Out, yeah, out the barrel. And if anything goes wrong, it doesn't go out the barrel. It always finds the path of least resistance. Do you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, they can. I suppose now that I actually think about it, one of the more unusual ones was that a fella rang me a while back, and from the story I got from him, he had he had one gun with two sets of barrels, and
Yeah.
he was going to shoot a competition the next day, and one of the barrels it wasn't firing. All right, I think it was the bottom barrel or something on one of the guns. And I said, look, if you want, call down and I'll have a look. I said, there's not much I can do, because you're
Yeah.
shooting tomorrow. It might just be that there's the firing pin hole itself is has crud in it or whatever needs to be
Yeah.
cleaned
Yeah.
out. So I got off the phone with him anyway, and something didn't sit right, and I rang him back and I said, just to be sure that you have one gun that came from factory with two sets of barrels. All right. And he said, no, he's
Okay.
one gun and he bought another set of barrels off a different manufacturer. It was a
Oh,
different gun completely, you know? And
Jesus.
And I had to tell him, like, did you understand that aside from how does it even fit on the action and the hinge pins and stuff like that, essentially that probably most likely the reason why that one of the barrels isn't firing is because you have too much distance between the cartridge and the
And the frying
firing
pan.
pin. Again,
Yeah.
it's called headspace. It's a critical tolerance within every firearm, and that essentially, you could actually blow the barrels off the gun inches from your face. And his response was, "But I'm shooting great with it."
Jesus.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's the kind of stuff that you do have to remind people of, is that if something goes wrong,
Yeah.
it goes very wrong.
Yeah. And you're as you say, you're a couple of inches away from your the most important part of your body. So, well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the second in some cases, but
Yeah,
but
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, Philip, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. I know
Yeah, thanks for
we
having
could
me.
go down another rabbit hole. If anyone wants to get you, you can find you on Small Arms Service on Facebook, on
Yeah,
Instagram.
yeah, Facebook and
Look,
Instagram. There's the website then, smallarmservices.ie, is another one. That they're all the same name, kind of LinkedIn. You can Google it, I'm sure, Google it and it'll
it'll
come up,
come up. Yeah, yeah, and look, we'll be throwing up a few links over the next couple of days anyway. So, if anyone is now is the time. Obviously, the shotgun season, well, the big shotgun season is over. If you now is the time to start thinking about preparing for next season, so it'll be a good time to And
Absolutely, yeah,
those that want to get the and as I say, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, and it keep your gun in good condition. I hope to get down to you soon. I know I've been promising that for a long time.
yeah, yeah. We'll get you a tour of the place here. As I said,
We
it's
will.
it's it's a pretty unique setup what we have here as well. Even with the likes of a laser welder, who certainly I'm the only dealer in the country that has one. Yeah.
In terms of that, I think there's you were saying to me. I think you were setting that up the last time, or you were getting that into position the last time. I think I was talking to you. How is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
going?
No, it's up and running now. It's some piece of kit. It's look, we're an island, and I don't know we talked about just going there, but quickly,
Not at
we're
all.
an
Not at
island.
all.
Getting parts in and out of this country is this is what I think people forget. We are an island.
Yeah.
So getting parts in and out is hard. So sometimes the only way to repair something is to rebuild it. As an example, I've two Parazis here at the moment, and the locking blocks. One of them is a NX8, I believe. It's a newer style locking block. I'm waiting to find out if I can get an older style one. If I can't get the older style locking block without this laser welder, the gun will be scrap.
Okay.
So, and the idea is that because the laser welder puts so little heat into the part that it doesn't distort it, it doesn't change the hardness of it or anything. So I can rebuild that locking block, refit it to the gun, and get the gun back up again.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that's a whole different world, and for people again who may think that their rifle has to be
Yeah,
um
yeah, yeah.
the,
The likes
not always
of
the
all
case.
of yeah. But even small things. What else do you do with it? Browning medalists. They again another common shotgun. The ejectors on them crack. You know, the only thing you can do is replace the ejector if you can get them.
Yes.
So you can actually weld them up, and you're putting in so little material and so little heat that there's minimal refitting in putting them back together. It's an
Brilliant.
amazing tool. Yeah, again, Berettas that the welding up the fore end iron to tighten up the gun as well. That kind of stuff can be done very easy with them.
So the traditional little bit of rocking in some of the guns, you can potentially fix them issues.
Yeah, yeah. So if you open up a gun that's been used over and under, like, just use Beretta as an example, as they wear, the barrels tend to drop down faster.
Drop down. Yeah.
So yeah, so what you're actually doing is you're welding welding the metal that has been removed from wear, and then you refit them then so that they've tightened up again.
Brilliant.
Just to
Brilliant.
give them a new lease of life. Yeah, yeah. So it's
Brilliant.
excellent. Yeah,
Well,
excellent.
that obviously feeds into what we were saying earlier on about the if you don't want to change your gun, if like that last one you were talking about, your gun is fitting you well and you're shooting well with it, but it's coming over the hill in terms of its age, and maybe there's a
Yeah,
couple of
yeah,
little bits and pieces. It's not always the end of the line for them. So
yeah,
there's
yeah,
you can send them down to your good self, and
yeah,
you can get them nicely coated and
yeah,
tightened back up, and you've essentially a relatively close as you're going to get it anyway
yeah.
to
Absolutely.
renewed
Yeah,
life in the
yeah,
gun.
yeah,
Brilliant.
yeah.
Is there anything else that other services that you offer commonly down there, Philip?
Uh,
Apart from a hug and a kiss going out the door.
No, look, as I said, I suppose the service we provide are constantly evolving because, uh, you know,
Different needs crop up.
yeah, well, different needs and look, there's a huge investment in equipment, for this line of
Yeah.
work. A lathe isn't an expensive or isn't a cheap piece of equipment, and even there's a lathe there we have since I'd say it's November last year, but the tooling and equipment for it is the actual cost of the machine is almost the same as what the tooling and equipment is going to be as well, to make
As well,
sure that
yeah.
if you're threading barrows, or if you're chambering barrows, or making components and stuff, that it's spot on, Same as well with the milling machine. So a lot of stuff that we do is drilling and tapping shotgun receivers for rails, modifying shotguns. One of the target competitions, it's called it's Target Shotgun with the Embassy Cup. So we modified likes of Remington 870s for that competition. Geez, what else are we doing? A lot of it is general gunsmithing work, that you
Yeah.
need doing,
So like that,
I've
if a rail snaps off a gun, and you're left with the
oh
screws, the
yeah,
threads, and all that kind of stuff, that's
yeah, I
straightforward enough
get
for you
that.
guys.
Yeah, see, that thing is kind of common.
That's bread
So
and butter.
you,
I was just going to say that
yeah,
I've glossed over that in the conversation, because I've seen loads of your stuff in terms of coming in with screws kind of cut off at the top, and
yeah, yeah.
that's
Like
bread and butter for you
even
guys.
I think it's either 680 or 682 Beretta in for a full refinish, putting the gun back on face, tightening up the action, completely rebuild it. But the gun came in and the front sight had been sheared off. Look, something that there's people outside there are probably just recoiling in horror at all. No, some guys don't use a front bead, all right, and
Yeah,
that's fine, but this guy does anyway. And so look, to me, it's simple. You're actually just drilling a hole in it with a 1.5 mil drill bit,
yeah, yeah.
and then you're increasing the size of the drill bit until obviously without damaging the threads, so that you can take out the bead,
Yeah.
and install then an aftermarket high vis sight. It's something that you'd almost blink at doing down
I see
here.
you're saying that like as if it's just another, but it's essentially surgery on guns, this kind of stuff. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
and
I suppose even to some of the other stuff that we do here. I mean, a guy sent down a CZ 457. It was a left hand. I think I've already posted it up already. Um, he's left-handed now. Strange enough, so am I. Like, but the chassis he had for it. This is for that 2.2 long range stuff.
yeah,
Um, the chassis was right-handed,
okay,
so the gun actually doesn't fit. But
yeah,
our job was to make it fit.
okay.
So we machined the chassis so that you could actually use it as a left hand, and if you sold it in the morning, you could still put a right hand one back in it. And
Okay.
again, you have to make sure that it functions as well. There's no point in making it look well and all that, and so we made sure it functions as well then in it.
And in terms of that process, that's interesting. I know we kind of digressed into and bounced on this, but um, talk us just through that process there in terms of getting that gun to fit.
Well, you see, the action does fit because
Yeah,
the chassis was for a 457, but it was just a right hand gun.
yeah,
From what I remember, and there's pictures up online of it, we just had to machine a block of aluminium that was inside. That was machined from day one, and then put a ramp on the left hand side that mimicked what was on the right, so that the safety could work. And
okay,
just
yeah,
cut a notch as well, so that when the gun was cocked, or when the bolt was closed, that it fit in.
fit in. Very
Um,
good.
yeah, so that same guy then was looking for kind of a bit of a theme. He was looking for what they call a battle worn theme. Um, so how you do it is that once all the machining is done and all the fitting is done and stuff, and the parts are degreased and they're ready for Cerakote, and you bead blast them. You put down with battle worn. You kind of pick two colors. So in this case, there was a base coat of silver, and then you put a black coat over it. So
Okay.
you then remove the black by
Okay.
hand with it could be sandpaper, it could be emery paper, it could be to give it that battle worn look.
Born
You
look.
know?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and this particular guy then as well wanted like he wanted blood on it, like blood
Okay.
splatter. You
Splatters.
know,
Yeah. Very
to
good.
really make it stand out. And I remember the guy actually, he says to me, can you do a blood splatter effect on it? You know, and I said, a blood splatter. It's okay if you can't. It's okay if you can't. And I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
I suppose you want fingerprints as well, would you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Deadly.
we were able to put fingerprint on it, you know, as if
Brilliant.
cause it went with the whole team of it. So
The team.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, they
So,
went with the whole team. Mm.
so am I right in saying I'm probably gonna you get inundated now, but there's probably no limit. No, I'm not saying there's no limit, but there's some really cool. Some would say kind of wacky ideas. That
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
can
Like
really
again,
invent
yeah,
your own
yeah. Yeah,
your own.
look with the Cerakote, I mean, you can do camouflage patterns, um, pretty simply but well, it's not pretty. It's very time consuming, but you can do them, yeah, on your stock, on your barreled action and stuff, you know.
Deadly.
We have a plotter here, so we'd make up our own stencils that if you wanted just a three-color camouflage pattern, you know, it's very easy to do. You pick the colors and we can kind of go from there then, you know.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So
Pimp my
that
gun.
cost that's it, you know. But like
That
again, if you are coming down and if you have a shotgun or you have a rifle, um, you know, it's not just the corrosion protection we're giving you. We're giving you the choice then, you know, if you're shooting, if you don't want gun or a glare on your firearm, you know, we'll use a matte black. You know, as I said, if you're
yeah.
using, yeah, if you're just shooting clays, and you like that glossy traditional blue look, we can give you something that mimics that pretty well, you know, but without the
Yeah.
drawbacks. You know,
Brilliant.
if you want an OD green, you know, there's I think I've about four different greens in stock, just depending on whatever floats your boat
What one
that
you like?
day.
Well, look,
Yeah, yeah,
I'd be
yeah.
urging people that if you've something in your mind, and it's something that's kind of can it be done, you're going to find. I can attest to this because I've called on you a couple of times for a few different favors in the last couple of
Mm.
years. You're definitely approachable. You'll be able to tell them straight away whether it can or can't be done. If it can at all be done, I know you're the man that will do it. So I'd urge people, if you have and let us know. We'd love to see some of the ideas that are out there over the next couple of months, and make sure and tag us in them and send them on.
Yeah,
And
sure, yeah.
get in touch with Philip down there. That's what we'd be urging the listeners there, so to give him a shout. He'll tell you one way or the other whether it can be done or not. If it can at all be done, he's the man to do it. So yeah, reach out to him. And the continued success, my man. I know you're going from strength to strength
Same,
down there.
yeah, same with yourselves. It's I said it's fantastic to see this podcast taking such a hold, both nationally and internationally as well. You
I
know,
really appreciate it, my man. It's been a pleasure talking to you. It
same
won't
to
be the
yourself.
last time this year. I'm sure we'll be chatting over the next couple of weeks. And I look forward to seeing you.
Perfect. Thanks a million. Take care. Cheers.
Over and out, my man.
Bye bye.